Hello, and welcome to the weekly career question with me, Emmy Peterson from The Bridge Coaching. I work as a career and transition coach, helping people both position in the company and the career they're already in and looking to grow and get promoted perhaps internally. And I also work with a lot of people who want to change their career altogether. And in these weekly videos, I cover some of the most common questions that I have received over the years that I've been working as a coach since 2013 now. Today's question is one that's very near and dear to my heart because it helps empower people. And the question is, how do I get my manager to listen to my ideas? This question comes up a lot and it can relate to you if you are looking to discuss a promotion or a salary negotiation or simply just looking to change a process inside your company. So what I'm going to share with you today, as quickly as I can, is a really simple 4-step method that will help you draft your communication in a clear, concise, and persuasive way. Now, I did not invent this methodology. It's called format, so number 4, M-A-T. And the format method is often used when it comes to learning, but I love using it when it comes to communication, persuasion, and convincing, because it actually touches on the 4 key things that you need to do, whether you are writing, speaking, or a combination of the two. So let's dive in. I would like you to start looking at quadrant number 1, which is the why. So the first step that we've got to do, and we have to cover all 4 in order for our communication and our pitching of the idea to our boss is going to be as effective as possible. So in the first box, and I'm going to on the next slide share an actual example with you. So just lean in and listen to these 4 steps with me first. The first step is to outline why should they listen to you. You need to hook them in and make it relevant to them. Because even if it's super important to you, they might not understand why it's important for them, for their role, or for the company. And we're going to look at an example here in just a second. Secondly, you're going to dive into what specifically, and this is where you concisely describe, this is the one thing that I would like to change, or 1 to 2 things, keeping it really clear and articulated and condensed. Then you dive into step number 3, which is where you outline the steps or the solutions that need to happen. So we all know that most managers like when we bring a solution, so not just bringing a problem, but bringing the thinking and the logic that we've already done to solve the problem. So this is where you can outline the steps or the solutions, and you want to keep these as brief as you can. Even if it is a more complicated solution, you need to think of how you can pitch it in 3 to 5 steps, because the human brain can usually only process about 7 or so bits of information. And if you want your manager to retain what you are pitching or what you're asking, keeping it short will pay dividends. And finally, the 4th part is what if. So this is where you highlight any known objections. So this is things like, oh, now I know you might be thinking that we don't have time or we don't have budget or whatever it might be. This is where you address those objections, 2 to 3, maybe more objections, and finally tie them back to the why. So the benefit for them, the benefit for the company is X, Y, and Z. Now, this method is incredibly useful, especially in written communication. So it really does, if you think about this as you write emails, as you answer questions and things like that, this is incredibly powerful because you've touched on all the common points, whether people are kinesthetic, overly analytical, visual, etc. This actually touches on most of the points that people use to make decisions if they should be listening to you. And we all know that they should, so let's give yourself the best chance for them to do so. So let's look at a specific example here. So let's say that you would like to change a process in your workplace that's currently not working. So we'll start in box number 1. So I have noticed, you might say something like this, I have noticed that our team spent 5 hours per week doing a manual task that could be automated. And they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting, or that's piqued their interest. But you probably need another hook to really bring it home. So you could say something like, if we automated this, that would give us 5 hours back that we could actually spend on this other project instead, which I know is a key priority for the business. So now that you've probably got their attention, whether you're doing this as a conversation or an email. So what specifically are you looking to change? So you could say something like, I want to automate the weekly blah, blah report, whatever that report is. And they're like, okay, yeah, cool. And then you dive into you can add a little bit more there, but you do want to make sure that point 2 or box number 2 is really short and concise, and try to keep it to one initiative or one thing if you can. Now, you've obviously done a little bit of research here because you are bringing some solutions and some ideas. So let's move into box number 3 and look at the how. So you have identified 4 steps in this example. So you might say something like, okay, so in order to address this automated report, we would need to set up my access with IT to this system. Now, the second part of point 1 is really up to you, and depending on your organization and how the hierarchy works. Most organizations would be very comfortable with you reaching out and chatting to IT about how difficult it would be for you to get access to the system or not. But I know from experience that a small amount of organizations that are quite hierarchical would not like that you've gone over the boss's head and spoken to someone. So be mindful of the culture here. But here in Australia, where I work, 99% of the time you would be perfectly fine to say, look, step 1 would be to set up my access with IT, and I've actually had a brief chat to Tom in IT on how hard that would be to do, and he said it's a 5-minute job. So good, you've taken away one objection as part of your solutions. Step 2 would be to connect the new system that they're going to give you access to the current reporting. And as we all know, for most companies, when we introduce a new process, we need to let other people know of the process, and we need to document it somewhere. So it depends on your company. And obviously, if you're in a very regulated space, there will be a process in your company for this anyway. But step 3 would be for you, as the person suggesting this, to document the change of process and draft the staff communication so you can let the rest of the team know. And step 4 is basically by date X, so 10 days from now, 14 days from now, we could have this process fully functioning and up and running. So those are the 4 steps that you are suggesting to address this issue of automating this report. Now, point number 5, which is, have I missed anything that you would like to include? Depending on your relationship with your boss and the format of this communication, you could leave this question here, or you could save it until you've finished box number 4, which we'll dive into now. So you will know if it's appropriate to ask for feedback at that stage, or if you'd like the feedback at the very end, which can sometimes be more useful. So you can say something when you get to step 4 in your presentation or in your written communication. You might say something like, I know you think this might be very difficult to set this up, but according to my calculation, it will take me 3 hours to set this all up and draft the staff communications. So that addresses any concerns that they have. You know, will you have the time to do your regular job on top of fixing this thing up? And then tying back to the why and to the benefit for them. So if we did this, so if you spent those 3 hours doing the stuff that you've, worked out that it's going to take, you could say, over the next month, this is going to save us 20 hours of work that can now be directed to the new team project instead. So you've tied it really clearly back to the why. Now, this is obviously a very simple example, and it can be a lot more complex than this, and it can require more than one conversation and more than one area of convincing. But hopefully by now you can see that if you use this simple 4-step method and make sure that you cover all the areas, you are much more likely to get your boss to listen to you and to get the outcome that you're after. Naturally, they might want to add a few things. They might want to invite another team. They might have a bunch of questions for you. But really the purpose of this, and the question is, how do I get my boss to listen to my ideas? Well, it's by presenting them in a really clear way, where it's not just your day-to-day frustrations or ideas, but how does this benefit the manager, the company, and the broader world around you? And the positive side effect is obviously that you don't have to spend 5 hours a week doing that manual thing that you probably don't like doing. So I trust that that was useful. Feel free to watch this video again. I know there was a lot of content on the screen today, but I wanted to give you a really hands-on practical example that you can use. If you have any follow-up questions at all about this or any other topics, please feel free to let me know via the email on the screen here. And I would love to either tic-tac with you over the email or answer your question in a future weekly career question video. All the best. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to see you in the next video.